Welcome to Streamlining Insurance, brought to you by the Risk and Insurance Educational Alliance, providing a practical advantage at every career stage. I'm Darren Bloomfield, the insurance guy at Feathery. Joining us is Sara from Great American. Hey, Sara, how's it going?
Hey, Darren. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Awesome, awesome. Well, happy to get connected. Just to kick us off here, can you tell us a little bit about your current role?
Yes. So I lead targeted acquisitions and strategic investments at Great American. What that encompasses is M&A activity on the insurance side of the house. By way of background, Great American is a subsidiary, the insurance subsidiary of American Financial Group. AFG is our ticker on the New York Stock Exchange. We are a Fortune 500 company. Um, we have 37 different divisions that write specialty commercial insurance, and a wide range within that subset of portfolio companies or portfolio of risks. Um, what we are looking to do from an M&A perspective with our targeted acquisition practice is to grow from 37 divisions to 40 divisions and beyond, or to look for bolt-ons to those existing divisions to grow premium as we continue to operate, in our core set of divisions.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I mean, especially in insurance, market share is like the name of the game. And as far as having the brand or whatever, like it's very important to like deliver what the brokers want and need. So like as a carrier, like always looking to like expand into new, profitable, profitable lines of business. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because we see a lot of the growth rates of MGAs in the market and brokers, right? And from a top line growth perspective, the sky's the limit as long as they have capacity. But for us as a carrier, we're really, laser focused on profitability. And so finding the right opportunities um, means that we look at a lot of opportunities and we don't necessarily have a high hit rate, but being particular means that we support kind of the accretive efforts of our growth strategy.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, from my experience, like underwriting, it's very clear to see some companies are top line, revenue focused, and some are like more bottom line growth, like kind of a little more conservative, long term kind of portfolio position. And I guess you need to grow to a certain point to have the market share, and then I guess you get the luxury of being a little more restrained in like what you're writing, but as far as like what you said, it's been interesting to like see it play out, especially in the last like year or so. Like the MGAs, like the non-risk bearing entities, are just able to come in and get that revenue and just like grow so quickly, versus like traditional carrier, like you're you're paying the claims, right? You're the risk bearing entity, so you have to be very careful about what you're underwriting, and also like on your side as well, like in kind of the strategic kind of investment side, like how you are investing like the float to profitably grow as well to pay those future claims.
Yes, yeah, that's right. American Money Management (AMM) is our in-house investment group, and they do invest. It's a large portfolio, primarily in fixed income, but we do have an alternative investment book that will accommodate funds and direct investments, all with the goal of kind of creating more alpha as we think about, leveraging all of our capabilities, including our capital.
Definitely, and just to get a better understanding, like I like to kind of understand, like I think in someone's role, it's like who do you talk to about what, like oh, like who do you talk to like externally and internally, and what are you usually kind of like talking about.
Yeah, I mean, on the external side, and I would say my team is pretty externally oriented in the sense that from a deal origination perspective, we're out, kind of in market, making sure that we're getting eyes on the full set of opportunities available to us so that, we're not passing some up or missing out on some that could have been a great fit. We also talk a lot to investors, VCs, um, that have, I think, a really good scope of the market and a good finger on the pulse of what other insurers are doing as well, right? There's the value of the VC community really lends to getting perspective across a lot of carriers because they're all looking for commercialization and scale across many blue chip insurance companies. And so it's nice to have that resource as someone who's in house to just kind of keep your finger on the pulse. And we talk to a lot of CEOs. I mean, we see a lot of company demos. We talk to a lot of CEOs, who are not ready for exit that maybe would be a few years down the road. So, keeping current and keeping your network active from an external perspective is really important for the type of work that we do. And then
Yeah, definitely.
also
I
it
mean,
drives our internal who it's relevant to internally.
yeah, definitely. I mean, as you know from like your banking experience, like you don't know when it's gonna be time for the deal, and like you just have to be ready to go when like the timing aligns. So
Yes. Yeah. Or try and make it happen. There are, I think, especially in the last few years when we didn't see a lot of activity in the IPO market and the opportunities for exit looked a little bit different, I think, than, a lot of companies that were at scale or really um, contemplating next stages of their life cycle. Didn't think about maybe or didn't expect 5, 7, 10 years earlier, contemplating where they had underwritten to in terms of an IPO or something of that nature versus, kind of understanding what maybe strategic alternatives could look like, have been really interesting conversations over the last few years.
yeah, definitely, and kind of focus more on what you do it with like vendors and kind of technology partners as far as like evaluating them, and then in like just kind of your role of seeing like all these trends and like innovation and how carriers like Great American and other kind of carriers in the space would think about like these partnerships and acquisitions. Have you kind of seen like, I mean, obviously like AI automation and digital transformation is, I mean, the name of the game. But what have you kind of seen in like the actual application or like staying power of these like new technologies?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, it's tricky because I think the speed at which the market is moving, especially now, and the speed at which some of these brand new companies are hitting significant levels of ARR within less than 12 months, is just mind blowing. And then, as we think about the shelf life of technology vis-a-vis the time to integrate and kind of stand up capabilities, it's really tricky. So we part of my team is to review strategic partnerships, whether it be as a vendor or commercial opportunity for the company within Great American as a whole, or as an investment opportunity within AMM. And so, to the extent that we're meeting companies and reviewing them and tracking them over time, and also being really active with our internal needs and priorities, we wind up being pretty well situated to match those up and make sure that as we're fulfilling the needs and there are things that aren't core to our capabilities that make sense to source externally, that we've got the right partners in mind, and kind of best in class technology platforms. I think as we think about innovation, I was talking to a CEO this morning of a great company with a very slick AI driven platform and asked him, what do you think is going, what is coming down the pipe for 2026? And it's just such a different answer, I think, than what you would hear from somebody in house at a large company like ours. We're thinking through implementation of AI and kind of individual utilization of generative, AI capabilities or Copilot or things of that nature that we've got access to. How do we focus on proliferation and kind of enhancing the way that we operate, which is totally different from a startup CEO who's like, well, we're launching this agent and we're doing this and
Yep.
this capability is coming out, and just it's so different. But we operate at the speed, that we do, and then there are a lot of things from an innovation perspective that we can tap to help augment that, but it's still not the speed of the market, I would
Yeah,
say.
definitely. And from what I've seen, at least, it's like one thing to have the AI automation tool, right? But it's another thing to not just form a business case use case, but it's like, what is the business case that someone will actually pay for and like want to implement? Like,
Yeah.
we can offer a technology that does X, Y, Z, but like if people only want to pay for Z, then like that's where the product market fit is, and that's where the need for the innovation matching the actual business need, and that's where the growth actually is. But just kind of curious on what you would say as far as like where in kind of the AI adoption kind of curve would you think we are like in insurance? Like personally, I would think like I mean, I would say we're still kind of at the beginning of like the AI automation still. I mean, I know now and all these publicly traded companies like Nvidia, Microsoft, everyone's like investing in each other and everything. And I know at least as of now, people seem really worried in that. But I think we're at its infancy still. But then especially in insurance, like I would say there's still a lot of companies, both brokers and carriers, that still haven't thought about AI automation or haven't even looked at a tool. And then, there's some that have purchased a tool and are starting to use a tool, trying to build out that use case internally. And then there are others that are, let's build it in house and not buy it. But I think like even then, like, I mean, there's a lot of different vendors in the space now that are popping up. And that's been good to kind of get some more traction and some more attention kind of to, the space and insurance and what tech solutions are out there. But I think it's still like very at its infancy still.
Yeah. Yeah. On a podcast that I listened to, I heard the stat that I haven't uh, fact checked, but that there was a Gallup poll recently, and 40% of employees just don't use AI. The reason being that they don't see the benefit, or they don't see how it would benefit their work directly. And that astounded me. I was really surprised by that. And I don't know if I'm certainly skewed because I think about this a lot, and we, are kind of making an effort intentionally to be involved and fully immersed in what's going on around us in the technology space. Um, but I would say if that is the marker that's more general, then we are certainly ahead of the curve. And I know that from our company perspective, we've got an AI center of excellence that was formed, and it's been, gosh, probably almost a year at this point, to start to really think about, what's our approach, what's happening in the market, how do we stay ahead of from an educational perspective, how do we, make sure that we're developing a strategy and we have the right capabilities internally, and also are understanding what capabilities are available externally for us to leverage in our operations, either to grow top line or cut expenses. We also have a gentleman who is fantastic. His name is Brian, and he is spearheading, if you will, our AI efforts at the company. And so, what was really cool about his approach is he also went out, much like the Gallup poll, and did a survey of our leadership across the company to kind of understand, state of the union, where we are today, and is developing a strategy on the right type of implementation going forward. So I think 2026 is going to be really exciting at our company, and we're being thoughtful, and there are a lot of really sharp people who are really thinking deeply about this. And then externally, I mean, there's a lot of development happening, and it's just crazy to see how quickly it goes. So I would say we're ahead of the curve in terms of our peer set, as I understand it, and the feedback that I'm getting from VCs and stakeholders across the ecosystem. But I still think there's going to be a huge leap next year that's yet to come.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just kind of curious on that too, is like, as I've noticed now, a lot of carriers have like these VC like venture arms that are investing like directly in startups. Like Erie just invested in Feathery from their VC arm. And like, how do you kind of see like these like new type of investment complementing like the traditional kind of M&A strategy, or like these venture arms now investing in startups focused on insurance? and then like how is that going to balance out with like the traditional portfolio and the M&A strategy that these venture arms already have?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, we do not have a formal CVC. And so there's not a mandate around putting bets into companies that have a strategic potential within our insurance operations. So any company that we invest in passes muster from a financial return perspective, first and foremost, to the extent that there's an opportunity to tie capacity or some sort of, contractual break or incentive on the commercial side alongside an equity check, then that is what I would consider to be a strategic investment instead of just, the vertical or the cross section of where a company operates relative to where your company operates. I think that it needs to be a little bit more of a direct connection there to hold that moniker of a strategic investment. That said, I mean, I think it's really interesting. I do think that there's an educational component around being in the market, really studying and placing careful bets in certain areas that are important to your company and serving as an expert or reference for business presidents. In our case, that's what we call them, the heads of our business units. They'll call and ask about companies or ask for a landscape and, how are we thinking about working with this company? Or, we have this need. Are there capabilities in market that you would recommend? And we'll take a look at a handful of companies there. So, as you think about, I would say the investment piece is pretty separate from the M&A piece in the sense that a lot of the CVCs in market are really looking at pretty young companies and taking really early stage venture bets. From an M&A perspective, it's really hard to acquire out of that same set of companies. So we're looking further down the life cycle, much further down the life cycle to kind of have something that will move the needle a little bit more for us.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense as far as like the investing strategy, kind of waiting to see how the market like develops. I mean, it's like any asset class. Like this is like a newer asset class, so you kind of want to see the market matures and how where the chips fall before you put your bet on it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's changing so quickly. It's the shelf life of technology. Yeah, I've heard some of my industry peers say, is it crazy to say I only want to partner with companies that were founded after the launch of ChatGPT? And that's an interesting question. If you're thinking about operational maturity, typically it's how long ago they were founded and how much time they've had to kind of incubate and grow and mature as a company. But if you think about even some of the tech stacks at companies now that have some tech debt because they're trying to revamp their platforms to be more AI native, it's a strange thing to see that cycle happening so early stage in a lot of vendor companies that we work with. The one thing that I always encourage here is if you reviewed a company last year or 6 months ago even, and it wasn't a fit, talk to them again because they've probably launched 100 capabilities even in the last 6 months and found different product market fit for different capabilities. If they're focused on your area of expertise, there's probably more there to uncover. And so that's some of the work is refreshing that analysis and an understanding of what companies are doing more frequently now than ever before.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think like product development on the startup side, it's just like it's very quick to get a product to market, especially if like a customer wants to pay for it. Like if a customer tells a startup like, "Hey, we'll buy this if it's there," like they're gonna prioritize making that product because then they know like the revenue is gonna be there. But as far as your perspective of kind of understanding just like AI in general, what's been helpful for you? Because I know like Great American is very large like enterprise level. I mean, obviously, like the needs of a Great American is very different than like small regional carrier. So how do you kind of navigate that like internally and externally, kind of like AI like coalition, if you would, of kind of like peers to better understand how to implement AI enterprise wide.
Yeah. No, I think that that is probably top of mind for a lot of corporate executives at large companies these days because I think our perspective, from a managerial perspective, the most important assets are the people, right? And there's not a focus on replacing people. It's more how do we make our people better, smarter, faster with augmentation from an AI capability. So we're a Microsoft shop. We've got Copilot. It is something that I use every day, day in, day out. Couldn't live without it. I use it professionally and personally. I think the more people at our company that can say that, the better we will be long term at leveraging and kind of, discovering efficiencies or uncovering, synergies where we can get more done, um, in each different role in each different area of the company. And so, that I think is first and foremost is the people and understanding the right way to roll those capabilities out where it's helpful and understood and embraced. Um, but there's also we also have a lot of really incredible technologists and data scientists who are thinking about, how do we think about automation? How do we think about, some of the back office things that maybe are laborious now that we can replace with smarter capabilities? And so it's across the board, really. But I think when you're looking at something at the scale, we've got, I might be a little off on this, but roughly 13,000 employees. There are organizations with many more. Uh, but I think the approach is still the same when you're scaling understanding it's and kind of day-to-day use from the bottom up. I don't know. That will be an interesting, I think, measurement to take now and a year from now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, as we go on, the AI automation tools, products, whatever will become more developed, more advanced, and be have even more of a product market fit. So yeah, we like. I mean, I've heard like, oh, this is like the worst AI is going to be right now, which is like kind of a funny thing because like it's gonna keep improving and keep improving. And as it improves, the tool improves, we as the users will be able better equipped to use the tools. And I mean, even from like my own experience, like I mean, like there's skills that you can learn by using AI, such as like prompting. Like how do you like prompt, ChatGPT or Copilot and kind of like work with it to get the information you need. So as you said, like I mean, I know you're a power user, right? But not everyone's the power user. So I think that's like how do you kind of get the employees kind of internally to have that value and that understanding of like how can AI automation like help you. And as you said that stat earlier of like 40% of people like don't think that AI automation is like helpful. Like, well, maybe they just don't know how to use it or know the use case or have like that why or that education.
Yeah. No, it's I think there's always a moment that I've talked to a lot of people about this because I'm curious. I'm just curious how other people are using them. I guess I'll share a couple of stories. A good friend had talked about the like aha moment uh, with a generative AI with ChatGPT for him, putting in something for work and having a deeper realization that the understanding and the answer that came back was more profound than expected and kind of shifted thinking on things. And when you have this moment of like, oh, there, it is thinking about things in a way that's very deep at many levels that I hadn't really gone to that level myself. I think that's when you initially get hooked on things like that. I think the other thing, actually, a colleague of mine here at Great American did a ton of work. We're pulling together an AI council, Cincinnati AI Council here for those tasked with implementing AI at large organizations. There are many large organizations in our region. And the thought was, let's pull them together and see if there's a way that, we can share innovative ideas or best practices or pain points. And so he had used AI to put together a proposal for this council. And it was like 8 separate documents and very detailed, kind of first meeting, second meeting, here's who comes, and all these different things. And I was like, what did you prompt to get all of this written out? And he kind of smiled and he said, it feels really personal to share prompts, but I guess I can send you my prompt. He's
Yeah.
like, I talked about you in it. I talked about me. It was like, a full long paragraph. But it is a funny thing when you start to get really good at prompting, it does feel kind of personal because you're just putting it all in there and seeing what you get back. The more, I think that's been one of my learnings is the more you put into your prompt, the more you get out of your answer. And so it is like, it's a funny thing. You talk about your Google search history. I think the prompts that you use are going to be kind of an interesting evolution in just that aha moment and then getting better at the engagement there. And so that I think people just have to discover on their own, either through work or on their own time. And then it's just off to the races.
You know what? That should be like a hashtag now. Like prompts are personal. Like my prompts are personal. Like I mean, you're right though, and I mean also like using. I mean, at least like I know like ChatGPT kind of saves your chat history. So then like it has context from your previous chats. So then it knows like your positioning. I guess when you ask it like another question. I've also heard of like other tools. I think it's called like Prompt Cowboy. Like Prompt Cowboy, you can put your prompt into Prompt Cowboy and then they'll like spit back like a better prompt to you, and then you just use like that prompt. So I guess it enhances
Yeah,
now AI enhances prompts for other AI to use. So yeah, it's all
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, some will have two different, you know, like two different interfaces together, have one write the prompt and then put it into the other one to assess. And that is next level in terms of, the really maximizing things. But it's so early, we don't even need to get to that level to start to see returns across the company if everyone's, leaning into some level and augmenting, whatever work that they're trying to accomplish. So
No,
that's
I
exciting.
totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And as we wrap up here, is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that you would like to talk about?
Do I get to ask a question?
Yeah, sure, of course.
What are you excited about? Like, what do you see in store for 2026 at your company or in the market in general as relates to AI?
I can't give away the keys to the kingdom of all my product development ideas right now before they're out in the world. But I do have a few product development ideas, and I mean, as far as like how can AI automation, I guess I just wrote an article on this for like institutes. So I was basically like with everyone like retiring, there's like a big generational gap in insurance. Obviously, it's a lot harder to like recruit people into insurance mainly because people don't know jobs outside of auto, home, life insurance, which those tools are very important. We need people in those roles, but it would be great if college grads knew the other jobs that existed. So as far as like retirement planning or transitioning, people with 30, 40 years of like underwriting experience out of the workforce and out of the industry, if you just use their last year or whatever as like a project of literally like AI, like we want all your knowledge into this database. And then for training, new grads, new hires can come in, leverage that database to, prompt that database, and then literally learn the line of business. Like, hey, someone with 4 years of experience, we want you to tell us stories about all the claims you've seen, and when you were underwriting that file, how did you not think of this exposure or like whatever it is. And then if you can like get that in your systems and get that on paper, because I mean people love their stories.
Yeah, it's
Especially in
true.
insurance, like, and then people, I wouldn't say people love to talk about claims, but like, I mean, maybe claims adjusters do, but like, man, like, like, oh, my first claim, I remember, I was like on the train and like, oh, I got a call from my boss that I got a claim. And it's like, oh, like everyone seems to like remember. So I think that would be one way. I think just kind of like the training and getting, a new hire, a new underwriter off the ground. Like it's pretty hard to start at a new company, have to learn all their brokers, their appetite, their management structure internally, claims history. Why is that their appetite? Where do they want to grow in? What is their positioning in the market? What do brokers think about them? And it's like all changes every few months anyway, depending on what market you're in. So I think that would be cool. So whoever wants to make that, please do. I'll consult for you.
Awesome. Sign me up. That is a real thing. And that is, I think, the people equation and the institutional knowledge and how we make that accessible for new recruits it's a real thing. That's a big problem to tackle. If you build that, I don't know, man, you could be off to the races.
Yeah, I mean, I know because funny enough, like it took, very large publicly traded companies, a few years to like, you know, Aon GPT, Gallagher GPT, and it's like, oh, like the internal database, so you're not putting all your clients' personal information online. Great, like that's awesome. But what if you have like a casualty GPT and like, oh, property GPT, or like very specific lines of business? You could just like prompt that. And it's like, oh, I want to look at this from the claims perspective. Here's the casualty claims GPT in Illinois or Chicago or whatever, and like it'll just run through all the claims files. Like I think that would be cool.
How far away do you think that is? Next year? 5 years?
All it takes is for someone to want to buy it, and then someone will build it. So
I mean, you got to use it,
yeah, yeah, no, definitely.
That's
Awesome. Well, good question. They're turning the questions on the host. Fair enough. But yeah, thanks so much, Sara, for joining us. Appreciate your time.
really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.